doesn't,
like said,
it doesn't want to drain.
from people not paying attention.
Right.
I thought, well, those
I'm
are
only leaving on
3,
vacation
4
Saturday, so I
you know,
don't
and
do laundry.
those kids, yeah, there they are.
I'm going to my parents' house. I'll just
Wow.
remember to
Just like when you were in college, right?
Here, Mom.
Only this time you have more laundry. Baby clothes.
And they are, they're 10 seconds. But that, yeah, it was me that didn't like the rotation, that's right. Yeah, that's right, there we go. So much stress, coming and going, and people are looking for the kids and reading the signs at the same time. Okay, it looks like we have to begin this meeting. Are you ready?
Chat.
No, let's get this on the way, you've been waiting all year for this. I call the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. And please let us rise and pledge the allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will take roll call. Maureen.
Here.
What's your name?
Colleen Moore.
Kip Wilnauer.
Neil Wooten. Kevin Kane.
We're all here. And consent agenda. We're here to approve the minutes of the last meeting and approval of the 2015 Board of Appeals schedule. Would anybody like to discuss either of those items? And if not, do I hear a motion just to go ahead and do it?
I'll make a motion to accept them. I'll second.
Thank you. I know it's not necessary, but I do. Because that would be fun. All right, so that brings us to the regular agenda.
Oh, you gotta vote.
Oh, do we really have to? Oh, since I raised the issue, huh? All in favor?
Well, you have to take action on the items, so.
Okay, all in favor of those that motion and the second?
Aye.
Yes, passed. Regular agenda. Number 1, elect a chairman and a vice chairman to the Gardner Board of Zoning Appeals for the 2014-2015 term. Do I hear any names bandied about?
I'll nominate Kip Wilnauer to be chair, and I'll nominate Mike to be vice chair.
Do I hear a second on that?
I'll second that.
Do I hear any other nominations?
I'll third it.
Any other names? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I guess that too passes. Number 2. Board training.
I'll try to. This is just a refresher. We'd like to try to do this every year, just so remember what rules we're abiding by and where we're coming and where we've gone. What Travis is passing out is the board bylaws, and then the chapter out of the zoning code that talks about the Board of Zoning Appeals. They're pretty much duplication of each other. The chapter out of the zoning code gives a little more explanation of your duties as far as a variance and an appeal. So that's kind of nice information to have. What I'm going to talk about tonight, the bylaws, quasi-judicial proceedings, COMA and CORA, policies, procedures, and processes, development review process, development regulations, and project updates. Sounds like a lot, it's not. Just some highlights out of the bylaws. The officers are elected annually at the first meeting after July 1. December.
That's good. That's a good thing.
Yep. The chairman presides at all meetings. The vice chairman acts as the chairman in the absence of the chairman. A lot of chairman in that sentence. The secretary would be the city administrator or designee. Currently our interim community development director. Attendance, it's not addressed in the bylaws, but it's addressed in the governing body rules of procedure. You violate the policy if you miss 3 consecutive meetings without an excuse, or attend fewer than 2/3 of the regular or special meetings. The board doesn't meet very often, and so we really typically don't have an issue with that, with BZA. Regular meetings are set annually, did that today. Any special meetings can be called by the chair or secretary for a fixed time and location. We actually had recent experience with that. A quorum is a majority of the membership. Quorum would be 3, and 3 people are necessary to take care of business and any official action. Agendas, you'll get those at least 3 days prior to a meeting, typically by the end of the day Thursday. We got them Friday this week because the meeting was on a Thursday. So that's one thing we've been trying really hard to get that information packet to you in a timely manner so that you have enough time to review them. Article 5, conduct of meetings. You have parliamentary procedures, which follows basically Robert's Rules of Orders, roll call, approval of minutes, agenda amendments, which we don't see very often, consent agenda, agenda items, discussion items, adjournment. Those are all listed out on your agenda. Sometimes we leave those off because we don't have any of those items. Some other highlights in Article 5, continuances. An item can be continued by an applicant or by recommendation of staff or a board member. You also saw that this year with Perkins. We continued, well, we didn't, you did, continued that application to allow for some further information from the FAA. The applicant is entitled to 1 continuance, and do recommend that if you do continue an item that you continue it to a date certain, because the majority of your cases are public hearings, and we do have to publish those, and that just takes away some of the almost mystery of when that meeting and public hearing, and it makes the BZA meetings legally sound. Appearance before the board, public hearing for items that require, all variances require public hearing. Board discretion whether they want to take public comment for non-public hearing items. The board does hear appeals, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I don't know that this board has really ever heard any appeals. Typically what you get for appeals are if the planning staff makes a determination and the applicant feels that is an incorrect determination, their recourse for that is to appeal the determination of the planning director to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And then that would be your decision as to if the director interpreted the code correctly or not. Conduct of meetings. Public hearings, the chair reads the agenda item, opens the public hearing. We have presentations from staff, applicants, public comments, board questions, and close the public hearing. After that, there's board discussion. Public is generally not part of that unless the board wishes to ask specific questions, and then action. More on the board action. Shall be by voice vote. Can do it by roll call. All members, including the chairman, shall have a vote when present. Motions, you can approve it, deny it, continue, or table an item. Those can include any stipulations or conditions. Every motion must receive a second. That's important. After that second, there can be any discussion of a motion. If somebody wants to tweak something in that motion, that can be done at that time, and then there would be a vote on that motion.
What's the difference between a continue or a table?
There's specifics in the code. A continue, you usually continue it to a date certain. Tabling just kind of lets you set it on the table and let it sit.
Okay.
Typically, continuances are for items that have public hearings. Tabling could be for items that, for example, appeals. And I know if you table something, if it isn't brought back before the board after 6 months, it's considered withdrawn. So
Tabling things you don't have to take action on necessarily, you just kind of put it in limbo.
Well, it's a technical application, but yeah, it's one of those things that the applicant's having issues, or they're kind of wavering, or they're, the board's not sure, looking for more information from the applicant. They may table it because you don't know how long it is before they get the information. You can table it, and then if they don't bring back any more information, it'll just, we'll just put it back on the shelf, consider it withdrawn at that point. I don't see the board using that option very often. Usually it's either an approval, denial, or a continuance. Abstentions, board member, you can abstain from any item if you have a conflict of interest only. Please don't abstain from an item because you don't want to vote on it. That nobody wants to make a hard decision, and your job is to make the determination based on the state statutes and those different thresholds, and abstaining from items, you need to have good interest, or good reason, usually a conflict of interest. And if you do abstain, you need to leave the room and not be a part of the decision. There's always some questions every once in a while that pop up about, should I abstain from this item? My brother's friends with this guy who's asking, if you have any questions, ask us. If there's any questions for us, we'll ask Brian, who's not here. It never hurts to ask. Cross-communication, which is any communication between the board members at the dais. This should not happen. It can look like you're discussing amongst yourselves in secretive about an item. This is a public meeting, public hearing. If you have any questions or any comments or anything, those need to be directed to the chair so that they can be heard by everybody. If it's a, do you have a piece of gum? I probably would refrain from asking the chair about that, but the cross-communication is really more of an appearance thing. You don't, even if you're asking just for a piece of gum, people in the audience may think that you're having some sort of inside discussion, so we want to just not have that appearance. Quasi-judicial proceedings. You are a quasi-judicial board. You're a group which has powers and procedures resembling those of a court of law or judge. Quasi-judicial, if you have public hearing that's required by law and your decision affects specific parties and does not have a wide area impact. Quasi-judicial proceedings follow procedural due process, fair consideration, proper notice of hearing, proper hearing process, complete record. Decision meets legal requirements and based upon a record. Most of this in most of these things, we do for you, the notice of the hearing, the proper hearing process, the complete record, but this is all part of that formal process. The decision, again, we talk about that. One thing I want to highlight is the decision is based on required findings, not on popularity. Those findings are what you see in the staff report outlined specifically as questions. Does this meet a hardship test? Yes or no? Those are the findings that are outlined in the staff report. Ex parte communications. These are communications that are outside of the public hearing. Sometimes we'll get applicants or people that are strongly in favor or strongly opposed that would like to contact you. Some of that information is public and they can do that. The bylaws state that the board shall refrain from any form of ex parte communication. Really what we kind of go by for that is that they can contact you, they can email you, they could call you, they could stop you in the grocery store and talk to you. We recommend you don't do any of that. Don't discuss it. But if you happen to discuss it, you need to disclose that at the meeting. I talked to an interested party in the grocery store. They wanted to tell me that they were in support of the project, and I did not discuss it any further. Something basic like that. You can sit there and listen. Basically, the ex parte communications are for you to share with the board any information that you may have learned from this person, or any new information that wasn't presented at the meeting, anything like that, so that everybody has the same knowledge base to make their decision.
So it's okay to listen to what they have to say, but you're not going to debate it, right?
Right.
I mean, that seems
reasonable
to me.
And you're okay telling them, I would love to hear what you have to say. Please come to our meeting and speak before the board, or submit a letter so that everybody can hear what you have to say, and so that it's public record. You can politely do that in order to almost get out of it, or just sit there and listen to them and say, thank you. There's polite ways around it. People will call sometimes and want to tell you don't have to return the phone message. Or you can tell them, please come to our meeting and tell everybody. Some people feel bad doing that because they really want to listen and such, but we would really encourage people to come to the meeting so that it's public record, and then everybody hears. Recommendation that you do not provide direction or opinion to staff or anyone else regarding a pending project. Do disclose any contacts on the record, even if you don't know if it really would qualify as ex parte communication. Just disclose it. Never hurts. You don't have to go on and on about what the discussion was, and then they talked about their son's green pants, and then we went back to discussing the project. Just said we discussed the merits of the project, and they would like it supported, and so be it. And again, do make sure all decision makers have all the same information in making their decision. Usually if somebody forwards you an email with information on it, usually you're all going to get it. The best recourse is if you get an email, forward it to us, and then we'll again distribute it to you and include it in the packet, just to make everything legal, and then we don't have to worry about it. Coma and Cora, this is something for all decision making, and government-appointed bodies. POMA is the Kansas Open Meetings Act. That means shall be open to the public. A meeting is when a majority or a quorum of a membership is present. Serial communications is communications that involve the majority of a membership, i.e. in a reply-all email. Don't reply all. Once you start replying all and the next person replies all, it's just like you're in the same room as one another. And that would then consider you into a meeting. So, if you get a mass email from one person to everybody, if you wish to respond, just respond to the one person, thank you for your email. Something simple like that. Or don't respond at all. But try to avoid that reply all that can get you in trouble in a lot of situations. So, KORA is the Kansas Open Records Act. This talks about any public records, any applications that are made to our office are public records. They're open for inspection by any persons unless otherwise provided. And this act shall be liberally construed and applied to promote such policy. And we do get Open Records Act requests every once in a while. Those go through the city clerk. They have to be specific as to what they're looking for. If they're looking for any emails or just to look at the files or anything like that. Again, that request made in writing in the city clerk. All BZA files are under this act. Some policy regulations and processes. This is a very brief overview. This is what we look at as the planning department. We have a comprehensive plan which has the overarching goals and policies. The city approved a new comprehensive plan in September or August? September. I was turned off during that time. And out of that comprehensive plan, we have subdivision regulations, zoning ordinance, and design standards. We've just started a process to have new subdivision regulations and zoning ordinances drafted. We put out a request for proposal and received 8 responses. We've reviewed those responses and we're looking to talk to a few of those people that have replied, and we're hoping to get a contract approved in February to start the process. We're looking at a 12 to 18 month process. It'll be, I would say the process is pretty similar to the comprehensive plan process. I don't know if any of you were part of that, where we're going to have public meetings about it. We're going to have, depending on the consultant that we use, maybe some workshops, it depends. But there will be a public process involved with it. The adoption of that goes through the Planning Commission for a recommendation to the governing body. That's going to be a big project. So obviously the board is the kind of the keeper of the zoning ordinance. The Planning Commission is more of the keeper of the subdivision regulations and comprehensive plans. So we'll definitely keep the board up to date as to what's going on and involve you in the process also. These are the actions of the board. Variances, what you're going to see the most. This is a variance from a specific term of the zoning ordinance. This is verbiage right out of the chapter. These variances shall not be contrary to the public interest. Talks about hardships, and this definition is kind of based on those findings of facts and those tests that we go through in the staff report. That's what these are. The variance requested arose from a condition that is unique to the property or is not ordinarily found in the same zoning district. Not created by the action or actions of the applicant. That's the big part of this sentence. It's not created by the applicant. Variance would not adversely affect the rights of adjacent property owners or residents. That one's typically a pretty easy one, test to meet. The strict application of the provisions will constitute unnecessary hardship upon the property owner. That's a hard test. It's kind of a broad as to what an unnecessary hardship is. For me, an unnecessary hardship may be different from you. That's a tough one for the board to look at. The variance desired will not have adverse effects of public health, safety, morals, order, convenience, prosperity, or general welfare of the community. Granting the variance desired will not be opposed to the general spirit and intent of the zoning title. And if you remember in the last staff report, all of these are specifically listed out. The applicant is asked to answer those questions, and then the staff will provide a response to that too. An appeal, this is the one you've probably never seen. An appeal to the board may be taken by anyone aggrieved by any officer of the city or any governmental agency or body affected by any decision of the officer administering the provisions of this title, which is the zoning ordinance, and amendments thereto. The board shall have power to hear and decide appeals when it is alleged there is an error in any order. There's a potential that this could happen. We did talk to somebody about their option for an appeal to a decision that we did make. I think they weren't interested in doing that, but that is an avenue for them if they really felt that the interpretation that we made wasn't really the intent of what it said. This is a snippet of the variance process. A lot of this is, and this is kind of hard to see, I can provide the flow chart on paper form, send you an email if you're interested. A lot of this happens without you guys knowing. We do pre-application meetings. We try to bring the people in to discuss what they're trying to do to help them understand the application. Having to answer those test questions, hardship, such, sometimes those are really hard to understand. So to be able to bring the person in, explain the application, tell them what we're looking for as far as the question, the answers to the question, discuss really exactly what they're asking for a variance from. Sometimes it just helps that we bring them in and we look at the project and say, well, have you thought about doing it this way, and then you wouldn't need a variance. Sometimes that helps also. We have the application submittal on that calendar, has a deadline. Public notice, staff takes care of that. We do a notice in the newspaper, and then we do mailed notice to surrounding property owners. The application review, that's when we go through the application, look at it in detail, compare it to the zoning ordinance, and then write the staff report. The public meeting, that's where you come into play, and then we provide that staff report, the recommendation, answer any questions, have the public hearing, and then the decision by the board.
At what point does the board get notified? The first notification?
That the board gets
that we will have a meeting. Yes, I know it's an annual, probably a monthly date, but
yeah.
At what point on this do we get notified?
We can notify you at the submittal deadline, because we'll know then if there's a meeting or not.
I would like to know.
Okay, we'll do that.
Our schedules get a little tangled sometimes.
Especially this time of year. So we'll start doing that,
Please.
and that's something pretty easy, 'cause we have those all on our calendars as to, Planning Commission and BZA application deadlines, and, somewhere between the application submittal deadline and the public notice, which typically are really quick, but yeah, we'll let you know. And then, we did have somebody had wanted some information on some projects over the past years, and, what has happened with some applications that the board has seen. There was a variance for school signage at, Grand Star and Trail Ridge. The application was denied. It was considered to be a safety hazard as an attention tracking device. There are signs out there. It was made a determination by the planning director that, the copy changing, every 10 seconds or more would be appropriate and not considered an attention attracting device. So